items then, and then we'll hopefully we'll have somebody else join us. We can go back and do the action items. So we'll start with agenda item well, first of all, let's do introductions. Ari, I know you're going to be taking over, it appears, for Michael. Ari, do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit in your background and your role?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ari Del Rosario. I've been at MetroCog since it's almost been 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in September. And yeah, so I'm assistant transportation planner, and I'll be taking over the role from Michael for MetroCog's, MetroCog's role within the board.
Welcome. Julie, anybody from the city of Fargo, any new individuals today?
No, it's myself, Jordan, and Cole.
Okay.
So that's it from Fargo.
Anybody from the Moorhead side new?
No. Did you discuss that Lori won't be able to make the meeting yet? Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's begin then with item 3A, which is the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan Update. Jordan.
Yeah, so Brian, this is the PowerPoint of the informational items. I'm gonna switch it up on you here.
Okay, we can see it. Oh, no, gone.
That was the action item one. I think it's the other one. I got it too. All right, I'll go, Brian. I'll get it up if you can get it there. So every year, our safety plan needs to be updated. This is required by FDA. According to our plan, we have to have it updated every year by July 31st. The update has to go through the approval process of our committee, then it comes to you guys, and then it goes to the City of Fargo Commission and City of Morehead Council for final approval and signatures. Some updates to the plan. We updated our safety targets for 2022. One requirement that was added by FTA is infectious disease mitigation. Nobody can guess where that came from. So we had to add that component into the plan. Added the safety committee approval date. That was a new one for this year also, of having the safety committee approve the plan. Removed safety culture target. It was not a target that was required by the plan, so it was a little difficult to try and track. So we took that out. Removed work days lost target. Again, that's not a required component of the plan, so we took that out of the plan, and then we moved the audit log just to be an exhibit of the plan rather than part of the plan. The reason for that is we will make changes going forward, kind of as a working document until the next approval process, at which time those changes will be incorporated in the plan and made permanent when it's approved next year, July. So then next slide, Brian. These are updated targets. So we are required to report total fatalities, fatality rate. Those targets are obviously set at 0. Our performance or our reliability, distance between major mechanical failures with 9,000 miles for fixed route, 12,000 miles for on-demand or paratransit, and then 90% of our preventative maintenance services done within 500 miles of being due. Our safety events and safety event rates, these numbers are based on 5-year rolling averages of our NPD data. So you can see there are updated targets for 2022, and then same with injuries for fixed route, paratransit, and then Valley Senior Services. Those are the updated targets for 2022. Any questions on the safety plan?
Any questions for Jordan?
And no actions needed from the board on this one.
Okay, thank you for the update. I see that Steve Linus did join us, so we do have an official quorum now. So we'll go back up to our action items, which are agenda items number 2. Starting, we have the minutes for October 20th and February 16th, A and B. Maybe do those together. Any questions on the minutes? Hopefully you've all had a chance to read those at this point. Hearing no questions, we'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes for October 20th and February 16th.
This is Olson. I'll make a motion.
Okay, second. We have a first and second. Any other questions?
Just a minor correction. This is Strand. It's March 16th that it appears, not February 16th. Not that that matters, but.
Okay, thank you. All right. All those in favor of the motion, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion is carried. Next item is item 2C, which is the MAT bus procurement manual update. I know Lori is not here. Jordan or Julie, were you going to cover that?
Cole is going to.
Cole's going to cover it. Okay. Cole.
Yep. If possible, could we get the map board action items PowerPoint on the screen, please? Perfect. And if you just go to the next slide, too. So when we last met, we were just about in the process of starting our triennial review, which is actually covering the last 4 years of our operations, just going through and making sure that we were in FTA compliance. There were a few things that they found throughout the process, one of which is our procurement clauses, federal clauses that we have in all of our requests for proposals and things like that. So there were a few federal clauses that we were seeing or that had to be updated throughout that process, including the Americans with Disabilities Act access for access to sites for people with disabilities, prohibition on certain telecommunications and video surveillance services or equipment. That was one that I believe was released back in 2019 that we hadn't had in our procurements, and that unfortunately was the one finding deficiency that they had for us. But going forward, we have that in our federal clauses list for future procurements. Also, veterans hiring preferences on capital construction projects was something that was added, along with solid waste disposal. And in addition to that, we did update purchase threshold for compliance with federal and state requirements. I was just updating, I believe it's 100,000 to 150,000 with that, and updating the bid protest to procedures to no longer include bid protests to the FTA if all protests to MAT bus were completed. So we would like to request the motion to recommend approval of the updated procurement manual to the Fargo City Commission and Moorhead City Council.
All right, questions for Cole? Any questions?
This is Strand. I move approval.
Okay, we have a first.
Lindos will second.
Linda, second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. All right. Action item 2C, proposed Moorhead College UPass rates for 2022-2023. Cole, were you going to cover that one too for Lori?
Yeah, I'll do my best with this one.
Oh, excuse me. I think Taryn joined us and is able to cover that item. I think,
okay.
Right, Taryn? I'm sorry to interrupt.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch. What was the item?
Oh, it was for the UPass rates for the Moorhead colleges. We have the slides.
I can go through the slides. I unfortunately haven't had anything to do with it. Otherwise, I would be reading these slides for the first time, but I sure can.
That would be helpful. Thank you, Taryn.
Okay, so it looks like here we have some UPass rates that are being proposed for each of our UPass schools in Moorhead, MSUM, Concordia, and M-State. And those are based on enrollment numbers from previous years. So we have the examples up there of the 2020-2021 enrollment and the previous school year as well, showing that there was a little bit of a decrease in that. Excuse me. And so the fees are based on those numbers, and also we have some projected revenue in there for 2022 to 2023. And the fee distribution showing there is the percentage of our total UPass fees that would be how they'd be distributed amongst the colleges. And so it looks like what we're looking for here is just a approval of my little preview is hiding some of the screen there. Okay, approval of the Morehead UPass rates, which would be $80,075. And that would be recommended to the Morehead City Council. I don't know if there's another screen there or not.
Nope.
I think that was it, Darren. Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions on the UPass rates? I'm assuming these were discussed with the schools.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, I can see a bit this spring because we usually actually need to get this approved by students by the end of April. So we've already had a lot of these conversations, and I think it was supposed to be on an earlier meeting, but just didn't. I think we had canceled the meeting. So yeah, we had all our conversations this spring and had felt good about where we landed.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So that was going to be my question also, and just answered it. And so I'm happy to make that motion.
All right, we have a first.
Annie will second.
Thanks for jumping in on that, Annie.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion's carried. All right, thank you. We'll move on back into our informational items. On agenda item 3, we'll go to 3B, which is the status of the vehicles ordered and need for future flexibility. Jordan.
Yeah, so we are just finished up the process of the Duluth Transit Authority purchasing consortium for large fixed route buses. We ran into a little issue. New Flyer came back and said that they wanted a 24% increase in the prices that they originally submitted with the proposal. And that's due to supply chain issues and just the overall cost of everything going up. So we are still in discussions with them to finalize a price. So that's kind of an ongoing thing. They have submitted documentation saying that the increases are out of their control, therefore they could not foresee it. Therefore, it wasn't included in the proposal, and now they're requesting, like they said, a 24% increase in prices. So we're still trying to finalize that to get those buses ordered. What that means for us is our money and grants that we had budgeted, bus purchases at around $525. The buses are now coming in around $575 to $580. So we don't have enough grant funding to purchase those buses. Couple options we're looking at is combining some of the grants, and we'll just have to purchase less buses than what we were originally planning. And we're also looking at taking some of the amenities off of the buses to try and get that price down. One example of that would be a stainless steel frame that's about $18,000. So that could bring the price of the bus down. Just trying to look at what's necessary and to operate and what's maybe not as pertinent for us to get a bus. So we're working on that. Paratransit buses. We had a discussion with North Central Bus here about 2 weeks ago now. And the news on that front is much worse. The paratransit buses or shuttle buses, they rely on Ford for their chassis, and then a company called Elkhart puts the bodies on the chassis. The bad part is Ford is not putting their resources into those very low revenue producing chassis. That's a pretty inexpensive product for them, and they don't make a whole lot of money on it. So their limited resources are getting put into brand new vehicles that consumers can buy, and they're really limiting their resources on those. So currently, Elkhart has 9,000 buses on back order, and they're only getting 3,000 chassis allotted to them per year for the foreseeable future. So just to cover their backlog of orders is 3 years. Their plant currently is not even open. They shut down because there's no point in running the plant if they don't have enough chassis to get them all done. So they're basically waiting for all their chassis to show up. They'll open the plant, they'll build 3,000 buses, and they'll shut down again until they get more. So it really is not a good outlook. Fargo has 4 on order, and they are supposedly on the top of the priority list. So we should see those hopefully the beginning of next year, March, April timeframe, end of first quarter, beginning of second. And Moorhead has 2 buses on order, and they told us maybe 4 years.
Wow.
So we're trying to think outside the box and trying to think of other vehicles that we could utilize. We have been trying some smaller vehicles in the fleet and thinking that we may utilize those in paratransit. We utilize the smaller vehicles for riders that do not use any type of mobility aid, just riders that would use a walker or can just walk on, or ambulatory riders. And then we use our larger buses for, those wheelchair rides and only mobility aid rides. So we're trying to come up with a new solution, trying to think of a different way to do it, because that's kind of where we're at the moment. We can't buy what we normally could buy, and we can't operate like we normally would operate in the past. So just trying to come up with ideas, and we'll get there. But yeah, purchasing vehicles for the foreseeable future is going to be a challenge.
Questions for Jordan?
Any questions on that?
So Jordan, I'm assuming the maintenance then of the existing buses becomes even more important, and our parts, are you able to get parts to fix the existing buses? Is that kind of the strategy now too, is just making sure the buses that we do have can last longer?
Yeah, we're in that boat also. As the vehicles get older, they cost more to maintain, so that increases our operating on that side. And yes, we have issues getting parts. Not only getting them, but the price of them has really gone through the roof. And the quality has gone down, actually. There's been parts that we have purchased for years and never had quality issues. We're buying the exact same part from the exact same vendor, same part number, and it's a different part than what it was 3 years ago, made of different materials. And
Sure.
So we're having quality issues, they cost more, and they're harder to get. So that really hurts our operating side. So to get new vehicles that cost less to maintain would be great. So yeah, it does increase our operating on the maintenance side.
Any other questions for Jordan? All right, we'll move on to informational item 3C, update on the first transit contract amendment number 1. Julie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have, as everyone is aware, we have a vendor named First Transit that provides the drivers as well as management of the driver services. So what we are looking at here is an amendment to our existing agreement that would incorporate the changes we made a little bit earlier this year to the increase of drivers' wages, as well as exercising the option year for 2023. So the 2023 change would be to management fees, and it's an increase of 6.23%, that increase, and actually those costs are shared by Fargo and Moorhead based on revenue hours that we operate vehicles. The management fees include 8 full-time employees from First Transit, which would be the general manager, the ops manager, a safety manager, a trainer, and 4 road supervisors. So they're still included in this. Driver's wages, as you recall, we increased those on January 24th, but that did not impact senior men.
Oh, we lost you, Julie.
Sorry about that. Am I back?
Yep, you're back. We can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Driver's wages for 2023, we're proposing a 3% increase for a cost of living adjustment. So total driver costs would increase by 5.13%. And this would include improved health insurance benefits for the drivers, which is in the past, they've been pretty good. This increases that so that the drivers have better access to health care. And we did increase our driver's wage for 2023. So they will be starting at $21.90 an hour, which in the industry, when you look at other transit agencies that are more regional to us, that's one of the top wages. So we're hoping that really helps with recruitment and retaining of the drivers. One of the other things that is included in the contract is that we added software and equipment that actually First Transit provides, which are installed on our city-owned assets. So it's Drivecam, which is a great system that is one that when the buses are in motion, any change in G-force, which would be, say, a hard brake or a quick turn or some event that would trigger that system, it records those actions and you can play those back. And it's a good training tool as well for First Transit when you have drivers that may be experiencing some of those issues and not really realize it. So that's a good one. And then the GeoTab, which is also a First Transit product, they installed those, or I should say installed those on the vehicles, and that will give us performance data that comes through and will assist Jordan's staff in analyzing information from the vehicles. So those are the highlights for changing of the contract, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Questions for Julie?
Mr. Chairman, this is John Strand. Julie, what's the status on vacant or empty seats or positions open still in the department with the drivers?
Currently, and we get updates on the numbers every week. Currently, I believe there are 6 openings that need to be filled prior to the start of school for the academic year. So that includes hiring someone, training them, getting them on the bus with a senior driver so they do their cadetting, and then getting them into service. So it's a bit of a lengthy process, but we're in much better shape than we have been in, I would say, the past 2 years. So, yeah.
If I recall, we were at 18 vacancies or so.
Yes, that would be correct. Yep.
Wow.
So for various reasons, we have turnover at the lower, like 1 to 5 year range of employment for drivers. You have drivers that come on board and go through all the training and get out there and decide it's really not for them. So that's a little bit of it. Some come and train with us, and then they find that the wages are even better than what we offer. So they will go to another agency or company to drive for them. But with these changes we've made, it it's definitely helped us, and I anticipate it will definitely continue to assist us by getting these decent wages and benefits in place for the drivers. So, yeah.
And bear with me and I'll finish, but
Sure.
I'm just wondering if we need to be preparing more for this coming year with everybody's raising their rates, the airport, the city, the county, and the private world. So we just may need to stay in the wings and be prepared to revisit this or ready to if the market keeps working against us.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. If we continue or if we slip back into having that volume of vacancies, then we definitely have to readdress it. Correct.
And Julie, how does that work? Does when we have so much federal and state matching, and when it comes to the transit, are they aware of the issue? I'm assuming they're aware of it. Are they able to provide additional funding? And I'm assuming with fuel charges too, that has to be something maybe we didn't plan for quite as much in fuel. How is that whole budget, current budget operating, working with that?
Well, and you're right. There's these different factors that come into play with what's going on. As far as the fuel costs go in the budget, there's projections put in, and though actually Jordan would probably be better equipped to address the fuel costs, but the situation with those is they bid those out for 6 months in advance, and we lock in fuel prices for that period of time. So if I'm not mistaken, and I'll have Jordan talk to that in a second, but when it comes to looking at the lay of the land and bringing on better benefits and better driver wages, we take that into account. And what happens with the feds and the state for funding, I can't speak so much to the state of Minnesota, but the state of North Dakota, their dollars that we receive from them are actually based on license plate sales in the state of North Dakota. So during the oil field times, when there were exponential amounts of people buying these plates and tabs, our state aid went up for that period of time. But we're kind of stable right now at about $475,000 that comes through the state. But with the feds, and they're all very aware of what's going on with the industry right now, they actually increased their funding by 25% for the fiscal year 2023. So it's been very nice to have that extra funding. And of course, that equates to, if we are going to utilize all that funding, additional local share, but we plan for that. And that's part of our budget. So I think the industry has been pretty responsive to us as far as needing increased funding.
Julie, are you hearing anything, a discussion of increase in fares, or are you seeing other transit, with the increase of everything else going up? Do you see any discussion when you look at 2023 as far as the actual fees for transit, for the ridership fees?
We've discussed that, and the trend right now, and I think it applies to us as well, is that people are holding steady on their fares. We have a lot of people returning to the system that, may have been telecommuting or distance learning. And we don't want to impact them. We like, because ridership is still not at the level it was pre-COVID. So the trend in the industry right now is to get past that particular hurdle, get people back on the system, and then we would very likely look at increasing fees. We haven't increased any of those since, I believe it was 2012 was the last time we changed anything.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Other questions for Julie? All right, we'll move move on to item 3D, which is the Moorhead 2023 budget and grant application. Well, Lori's not here. Is Cole or Jordan, Julie, going to cover that one?
I can take that one. Absolutely.
Okay.
So on the Minnesota side, they, like I was alluding to just a minute ago, they have different funding formulas, and they also provide a much higher dollar amount to the state of Minnesota and any of the transit agencies that operate. So currently, we are in Fargo and Morehead operating under what we call a temporary suspension of our evening service hours. So we have gone from operating to 11:15 at night and dropped that back to 9:45 due to our driver shortages. But we do anticipate going back to that full service in 2023 to cease operations at 11:15. In our 5-year transit development plan that you have seen and approved late last year, there are recommended service increases, but we want to approach that very carefully, considering our labor shortages and the way the economy is right now and our riderships. So we're not proposing any changes to that particular level of service, even though the TDP is looking at recommending some service increases. We just don't want to make that step. We want to get back to the level we were at. We want to, like I said, attract people back to the system before we jump ahead and implement any new services. The overall operating budget from 22 to 23 is to $745,828 for Moorhead. So you'll see on the following slide, Lori based her grant application on that, but it does not reflect the 22 increase that we were just discussing. So she will have to implement that into her numbers. So could we go back to the last slide? Thank you so much. CARES funding, which is the funding that came through where it is 100% money, or you can use it for match money. We received, Moorhead, I believe, received about $3 million. Fargo received about $8 million. And for it to be utilized as either 100% funding or a local match, it really assists us when we're leveraging those funds for services. So Lori's talking about she's going to be using the CARES funding as the local share for the MnDOT grant for the Moorhead and Delaware services. And the remainder of the local share will be made up by the fare box revenue. So you've got that, advertising concessions, and any interest earned on the money that is currently in place. So, and if you could go to the next slide, we can take a peek at what Lori's proposing. Thank you. MnDOT has capped the budgets, and they don't want to see it exceed 10% over previous years. And any increase over the 10% would require pretty stringent justification. I know Lori has talked about that frequently with what MnDOT requires for any changes to what they perceive should be enough of an increase at the 10% level. The grant funding Lori is talking about on the competitive side is the 5339 money, which is for bus and bus facilities. So it could be used for equipment or buses or anything that goes along with our facilities, like the Metro Transit Garage. We're proposing some rehab to that building. So the city manager and the city council, when they are engaged in budget deliberations, they do have the authority to make some adjustments to what is being proposed in order to handle the CARES and the ARPA grants as they move forward and utilize those funds up. So And my apologies, I'm not that well versed in what Lori's doing. I think between myself, Cole, Taryn, Jordan, we can answer any questions that you might have with what Lori's demonstrating here.
All right, any questions on item 3D? Okay, hearing none. Thank you for the update, Julie. We'll move on to item 3E, which is the results from request for proposals. Cole.
Thank you. So back from our previous meeting, we were just getting into the process of going out for bids for shelter cleaning, snow clearing and removal, and custodial services for our two buildings, the Metro Transit Garage and the Ground Transportation Center. Since then, we have went through a majority of the requests for proposal process, including receiving bids from different local companies, meeting with those companies, answering their questions, evaluating the proposals with our evaluation teams, and we're just kind of continuing the process, winding down with all of it. They have been approved by the Moorhead City Council and Fargo City Commission for the shelter cleaning and snow clearing and removal contracts. Both of those were awarded to Valley Green and Associates. We did have one other proposal for the shelter cleaning RFP. That was from Ole's Fertile Lawn, but our evaluation team decided that Valley Green and Associates had a larger team, and based on our previous work with them, they have been clearing and removing snow for the last few years for us, that they were just a better option and would be able to provide a better service for cleaning our shelters. Currently, we're just waiting on the MNDOT's review of both of those procurements on the Morehead side of things to be able to offer the contract, and just waiting for Valley Green to review the contracts themselves too. For the custodial services, that is having a bit of a hang up. We did have one bidder in mind for it, but that bidder needs to be registered with sam.gov before we're able to award the contract. So we are just waiting to see if they have registered, if they would be able to register, and then we'll be able to finish off that process to be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Cole?
I have a question, Cole. Steve Lindas. In terms of awarding the contract to someone essentially that wasn't the low bid, have you adjusted then the RFP for the future to be able to address that kind of concern that might have been brought up?
So with the RFPs, we don't necessarily have to go with the low bid as long as we have that justification for better quality of service.
Okay.
Just being able to offer, just additional things that the low bid wouldn't be able to. The biggest thing with Valley Green and Associates is their large team. Ole's Fertile Lawn just has one person, Ole. He has been working for our current cleaners or current shelter cleaners, but just the justification of, say, he's out on vacation somewhere, we don't have anybody to be able to clean those shelters. But Valley Green, they have their entire team to be able to go out there and make sure that it's consistently done.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions for Cole? Cole, anything else on the RFPs?
Nothing currently. We should have an update on the custodial services RFP by our next coordinating board meeting.
All right, thank you, Cole. All right, item 3F, the March through June 2022 operating reports. Cole, do you can cover those too?
Yep, absolutely. So we've had a bit of a mix in terms of ridership increases and decreases system-wide. Kind of the biggest and most obvious thing is the extreme increase in college ridership compared to last year. Looking from January through June of this year compared to last year, we did see many students returning to local colleges, less online learning, and then that means more students that need our bus services. So looking all across the board with the NDSU routes, Route 31, 32E, 32W, 33, 34, NDSU TAP ride, and Route 13U on the first line there, you can all see substantial increases for those. Looking at the other Fargo routes, it's a bit interesting to see that we did have some increases on some of those routes. We were fare-free from January 1st through April of last year, which we did see an increase in ridership compared to COVID numbers. So it's very interesting to see that some of those have increased, with like Route 16 about 17%, Route 18 about 18%, and then you still have other routes that are seeing approximately 20% decreases, like Route 14 and Route 15. So a bit of a mixed bag in terms of which routes people are going back to, which routes didn't really see a lot of decrease due to COVID or us reinstating fares back last April. So then we also have our Link FM service. If you look at that, we didn't have any ridership back in 2021 for this period. We did service the street fair, and we will be servicing the street fair this year. We just had one event earlier that had 63 riders for that service. Industrial Park TAP ride has been another big success for us compared to last year. I believe that's due to potential layoffs due to COVID. People are just kind of returning to some of those industrial jobs. So we see a 40% increase there, which is great to see. And then the paratransit information eclipses the entire system. So West Fargo, Fargo, Moorhead, and Dilworth, we saw an overall increase of 14.33%. Paratransit really did not take much of a dip in terms of ridership due to the pandemic and post-pandemic numbers. So we have just been seeing paratransit go up in general since last year. Next slide, please. Then if you look at the Moorhead routes, it's kind of a similar situation to a majority of the Fargo routes. We're still trying to return to pre-pandemic ridership numbers, as Julia touched on before. We want to see all those riders that we had before kind of return to our service. So slowly but surely, we'll definitely see all these improve, and taking a look at the next couple of years, ridership data will be a little bit more even, because we won't have that section of time where we were fare free and had that increased ridership in 2021 compared to this year, 2022. Next slide, please. And kind of as I touched on before, all the college ridership has increased substantially. Just students returning to their classes, you can see NDSU had an increase of 181%. Everything minus NDSCS, which is kind of our lowest college ridership comparatively, just all saw major increases, obviously due to just students returning to classes, things kind of going back to normal, and then the need for bus service again. And last slide, please. And this one I'll just touch on briefly. I'm not as knowledgeable on the senior ride service, but overall, again, kind of with the rest of the system, we're seeing increase in ridership. I imagine this is similar to our paratransit services, offering services to elderly and disabled folks. Still need to get where they're going during the pandemic, after the pandemic. So just seeing ridership return to that is nice to see. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has on our ridership.
Questions for Cole?
John Strand here. Is the Link FM, is that running this week through the street fair?
Yep, that's correct. We have a slightly different route for it due to Center Avenue being closed, but we are servicing during the street fair.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, hearing none, I don't believe there's any articles that were attached. Anything else from the staff?
I don't think so.
Okay. Ari, next potential meeting dates that we have?
I'll need to bring them up. I know that I received a list, I think, from Laurie. Let me check. Meeting dates.
I believe
So
that
the
the
next
next
one
meeting is
is
September 21st.
Yeah, just got there. September 21st, yeah.
All right, any other business from anyone? All right, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you for attending and enjoy the rest of your beautiful day today.
Thank you.